Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Citizen Tsuyosa small seconds reference NK5010-51L. This watch is widely available from Citizen stockists nationwide and from the official Citizen website citizenwatch.ie for €499. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a cardboard watch box, which is housed inside this outer black cardboard box. The lid is branded with Citizen in silver, as you can see. So I'll take out the watch box and show it to you. So the watch box is in the form of a cylinder with a lid, and as you can see, the lid is branded with Citizen in silver, as is the front. And one removes the lid, and inside there is this foam protective block, which does a good job of protecting the watch from moving around inside the watch box in shipping and being damaged. The base is upholstered with contrasting grey velour fabric to a good standard. There's a cutout in the base, and that houses this piece of metal, which is also upholstered with contrasting grey velour fabric. And the metal can be manipulated for larger or smaller bracelet sizes from 6 to 8 inches, which is good. And it's a snug fit inside the cutout of the base. Does a good job of presenting the piece and also protecting it in shipping from any damage. So although basic, it does suffice, although I do think subjectively Citizen could do better at the €499 price point. I would like to see a plastic or vinyl watch box, and I think that would add to this being a high quality piece. So with regards to the items that come with the piece, this is the guarantee and watch care information leaflet, which you fold out. Inside, you can register your watch at citizenwatch.ie/register your watch, and you can also download the terms and conditions of the 5-year international warranty from citizenwatch.ie/guarantee. I want to give due credit to Citizen here, because often low tier pieces, and to clarify and remind you, low tier is €0 to €500 price point. At €499, this is at the upper end of low tier, but it's low tier nonetheless. Often low tier pieces are only covered with a 12-month or 2-year international warranty. This Tsuyosa small seconds reference NK5010-51L is covered by a 5-year international warranty, which is exceptional, and Citizen really deserve credit for that. On the right hand portion, there's space to fill in the case number, manufacturer's number, model number, date of purchase, retailer's name and address, country and owner's name. You can also fold out the leaflet, and this is the Citizen Watch Care Guide, which is very comprehensive, and it details the watch care and instructions of how to use the piece. But however, the one thing that's absent is clear concise diagrams and instructions in English of specifically the movement used, which is the Miyota Caliber 8322A automatic. So that would be beneficial, and I'd like to see Citizen include that, or alternatively a QR code which could be scanned with an Android or iPhone to download the owner's instruction manual specifically for the Miyota Caliber 8322A. But this does suffice. It's basic, although it is easy to understand, and it is clear and concise. Lastly, one also gets this Citizen cardboard tag. On the reverse, it has the reference number of the piece, the caliber number, which is 8322A, QR code you can scan, and the barcode for the piece. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 44.7mm, a thickness of 11.9mm. The integrated lug width internally is 12.8mm, and the President style bracelet is flared and tapers from 22mm at the widest point at the integrated lugs down to 20mm at the 2-button push butterfly clasp. Now, subjectively, one could be critical of the 2-button push butterfly clasp because it is sterile and unsigned, and at this price point at €499, the industry standard is to have a signed clasp. So I would like to see Citizen update this and engrave the Citizen text logo on the top link of the butterfly clasp, because that would give the piece a higher quality feel. But the quality of the finishing is good. 2-button push triggers on the left and the right hand flank are partially recessed, and they are mirror polished to a good standard, no sharp edges. We have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished baton handset and the silver mirror polished applied indices. Quality of the mirror polishing to the baton hands is excellent. Quality of the mirror polishing to the applied indices is also excellent, and I like the dial has perfect symmetry versus being an asymmetrical dial with a date complication. Subdial at 6 is well printed with black second ticks, and I like the contrasting blue subdial second hand. Legibility is good. It's got a grey anthracite background to it, which looks like it's bead blasted, and a nice silver ring which is mirror polished, which adds interest and gives the subdial a 3D effect. Double applied indices at 12 balance the double applied indices at 6, and I like the symmetry of the other applied indices. Legibility is good. Now, the textured dial has a guilloche finish, and I love the blue tone of it. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the best quality executed guilloche textured dials I've seen within the low tier, between €0 and €500 respectively. I appreciate this at the upper end of the low tier, €499, but it is excellent execution nonetheless. White minute ticks on the chaptering contrast very well with the textured blue guilloche dial, and also they complement the white tone of the Lume, which is C3 Superluminova. So colour of the dial is good, and I like the complementing of the sub-dial second hand in blue. The hands are baton hands, but they're not flat, they're faceted, and the facets are mirror polished to a very high standard. They're correctly proportioned. One can immediately differentiate between the shorter baton hour hand and the longer baton minute hand, so the legibility is good, functionality is good. The AR coating is excellent. When you view the piece straight on, the sapphire crystal looks invisible, and that's down to the AR coating having perfect clarity, perfect legibility. Now, the thing I like about this piece, bearing in mind it's powered by an 8000 series Miyota caliber, the caliber 8322A automatic with a sub-dial at 6, I like the rehort isn't too deep, because often it's a characteristic of 8000 series powered pieces such as the 8215 and 8315 respectively, they have a deep rehort. And the negative of that is the sapphire crystal sits very far away from the dial, the handset, the cannon pinion, and of course the sub-dial. This 8322A is good because it's relatively shallow and you can see the benefit. The rehort isn't too deep. So the sapphire crystal sits very close to the handset on the cannon pinion, and also sits very close to the guilloche dial and also the sub-dial. Legibility is therefore enhanced, and also this piece is also low profile, which is good. This enhances the comfort level and feel good factor. We're not looking at a 13mm thick piece. This is only 11.9, so it is very low profile for an integrated header of the piece. The bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, flat profile to it, flawless mirror polishing to the flat profile bezel, and I like its low profile because it allows the flat sapphire crystal to project above it. The edge of the sapphire crystal has a bevel on the edge of it, which is large, and it catches the light. When you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see the bevel on the edge of the sapphire crystal catches the light, very aesthetically pleasing. There's also a nice chamfer on the edge of the flat bezel, which again catches the light, but it deburrs the sharp edge to the flat profiling, so it's a very well polished and very well executed solid stainless steel bezel. The case is angular profile with brutalist angular lugs and longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the angular lugs and also the top of the case, and the transitions are very sharp and crisp, but they're not sharp, they've been deburred, but they look visually sharp. What I like about the edges of the case, which mark the transition between the top of the longitudinally brushed satin finished tonneau style angular case, is it marks the transition between the mirror polished flanks, and the large mirror polished bevel runs the full length of the case from the tip of the lug to the tip of the lug, and it's a nice deep bevel. Very aesthetically pleasing. Visually it deletes some of the meat to the slab sides of the flanks. So rather than having thick slab sides to the case, they're actually very low profile. Visually they look good. So this looks and feels like an 11.9mm thick piece. It doesn't look like a thick block or slab tonneau case. I really like the profiling of it. The angular lugs are well profiled. The flanks are also low profile because they've got large deep undercuts. Quality of the case back is also very well finished because we've got a large chamfer on the edge of it. So there's a nice crisp transition to the undercut, and that's mirror polished. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. Large bevel on the undercuts to the flanks, on the left hand flank and the right hand flank, and that deburrs it, so that enhances comfort level and feel good factor, but also makes the flanks look low profile and aesthetically pleasing. The crown is solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, and it's recessed partially into the right hand flank at the 4 o'clock position. Now the benefit of it being partially recessed at the 4 o'clock position is when you flex the wrist, unlike having a crown at the 3 o'clock default position, it doesn't dig into the back of the hand, but it is partially recessed, so it does project enough to be grippy and tactile. You can easily get your index fingernail beneath the edge of it and prise it out, so it works very well, and you can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb to manually wind it. So let's test the execution. Nice large bevel on it, chamfer on it, which deletes the sharp tips of the coin edge teeth. Mirror polished domed cap. Now it is sterile and unsigned. However, I'm not going to be critical because realistically it would be difficult to engrave or emboss the Citizen text logo in this small diameter of crown. Citizen don't use an emblem, they just use the brand logo, and it isn't going to be practical to engrave or emboss Citizen on the crown. Therefore, having a sterile crown is acceptable because of that. So when you pull it out to the first click, it hacks the movements, and as you can see, the sub-dial stops, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the Tsuyosa caliber 8322A automatic. Now, we're now in the time setting position, so it feels nice and smooth, clockwise and anti-clockwise, doesn't feel rough or gritty, doesn't feel stiff. When it's in the closed position, that reinstates the 50 meters of hermetic seal, and that's the benefit of a push-pull crown. When it's closed, you can manually wind it, and although it's partially recessed, when it's closed, you can still get good purchase with your index finger and thumb and manually wind it. Now, to clarify, this has a high power reserve. It's not an 8315 with 40 hours, for example. This has 60 hours, and that's the main benefit of the 8322A. It has a high 60-hour power reserve, which is the highest power reserve of all Tsuyosa calibers, along with the 8315. Now, the negative is, subjectively, is it takes more manual winding. So to put this into perspective, an 8215 or an 8315 with 40 hours of power reserve takes 40 clockwise turns to fully manually wind the mainspring to its maximum power reserve. But this has 60 hours. It has an additional 20 hours of power reserve, so of course it needs more manual winding. However, it doesn't take 60 clockwise turns, it takes 50. So 40 clockwise turns for an 8215. This needs 50 clockwise turns to manually wind it, but that is good because once it is fully manually wound, this will run for 60 hours, which is very strong specification. So pulling it out to the first click hacks the movement. Time setting feels smooth, clockwise and anti-clockwise. What I like about it is there's an almost immediate response to the baton minute hand. When you rotate the coin edge crown, clockwise and anti-clockwise, you don't need to take up a lot of slack, which is good. That's the benefit. It has less slack than a Seiko NH35A or an NH38, which you'll all be familiar with, and I like that. It does feel similar to the 8215 and also feels similar to the 8315, respectively. Similar amount of backplate in the meshing of the gearing. Now, to clarify, it's not a negative. It actually there's a mechanical reason for the backplate in the meshing of the gearing. If the meshing of the gearing, the teeth, did not have some backplate, when you push back in the crown, the lack of backplate would actually cause the baton minute hand to jump out of position rather than remaining static. But by having some backplate in the gearing, it allows some slacks. When you push back in the crown, when the winding stem enters the movement, it doesn't cause the gearing to jump and therefore the minute hand to jump. So it is necessary. There is a mechanical reason for it. But it feels good. Doesn't feel too slack. And I like the response. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the blue subdial second hand begins to sweep around the subdial at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep. So feels good to set the time, feels good to manually wind, hacking works well. Let's look at the bracelet in detail. So integrated bracelet, and as I've detailed, 12.8mm is the integrated internal lug width, and the bracelet tapers aggressively from 20 at the lugs down to 20 at the 2-button push butterfly clasp. N-link articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, that's the benefit, doesn't have additional excess longitudinal, lateral, side or up and down play, that's good. Articulation of the bracelet articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. It's not sloppy, although there is room for refinements. Now, one has to be magnanimous because this does use push pins. At this price point, €499, subjectively, one could be critical and say, well, it should have 1.2mm or 1.6mm screw pins. That would refine it and give it a higher quality feel, because we are at the upper end of the €0 to €500 price point in the low tier at €499 respectively. I personally prefer screw pins, but this is subjective. For the majority of collectors, I appreciate it's not going to be detrimental to have push pins versus screw pins. The benefit of push pins is it does make resizing the President style bracelet easy with a bracelet resizing tool. They could tighten up the tolerances. There is some slack, but it's not sloppy. The positive is no sharp edge to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks. Doesn't pull arm hairs, so it's comfortable, and it does articulate freely. Finishing is fantastic. Mirror polishing to the centre links of the President style bracelet has flawless mirror polishing. Outer links have brushed satin finish to the nice fine grained finish as per the top of the angular integrated case. So quality of the brushed satin finishing is excellent, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. I like the profiling of the President style links versus a flat link bracelet or alternatively oyster style bracelet, and they deserve credit for doing something different because with integrated bracelet pieces, the default option is usually to use an oyster style bracelet or a flat link bracelet, or alternatively beads of rice style bracelet or jubilee style bracelet. President style bracelets are not as popular, but they are very aesthetically pleasing because they've got a nice flat profile to the underside of the links, but the top profile has curvature to them, so they add plenty of meat to the bracelet, which is necessary with an integrated tonneau style case with angular brutalist lugs like this. With a 40mm, the President style bracelet does work very well, and I like that it tapers from 22 because it does need some meat on the bracelet to balance the head of the piece. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, end links articulate freely, don't feel stiff or kink, that's the benefit. Don't have excess longitudinal, lateral, side or up and down play, that's good. Bracelet articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Does have some play, there is room for refinement, but again that's down to using push pins versus screw pins, so one has to be magnanimous about it. On a positive note, no sharp edge to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks, doesn't pull arm hairs, flows nicely, it's a fluid bracelet, and the finishing is fantastic. Mirror polishing and brush satin finishing are excellent, I really like it. Let's look at the 2-button push butterfly clasp in detail. So, as I've detailed, the negative is it's unsigned, it's sterile. I'd like to see Citizen engraved with high definition engraving. But on a positive note, 2-button push triggers are heavily sprung loaded. The left and the right hand portions open freely. Flawless mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks. 2-button push triggers are heavily sprung loaded, so they feel reliable and robust. That's good. No sharp edges to the inner corners, which is good. They have been deburred and chamfered very well. No sharp edges to the top side and the underside of the flanks of the centre section to the butterfly clasp. And the mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks is done to a very good standard. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand outer hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. Left hand inner hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. Right hand inner hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. Finally, right hand outer hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. Pleasant surprise. All 4 hinge pins have an interference friction fit. Left hand outer, left hand inner, right hand outer. Excellent. Good quality control, build quality, tolerances and finishing. So, very good because the butterfly clasp isn't sloppy, it doesn't rattle. No sharp edges to it, no sharp corners. Mirror polishing is good, aesthetically pleasing. Snaps shut with a nice positive click to the left hand portion. Right portion also snaps shut with a nice positive click and opens freely. This is an example to other low tier brands of how to get a 2-button push butterfly clasp execution correct. The only thing I would like to see added to it is signed with Citizen. One thing I like about it, and I'll show you the benefit of this in the wrist shot, is we have a half link on the 6 o'clock side and a half link on the 12 o'clock side. Often low tier brands and even mid tier brands and mid tier micro brands don't do this. They only have full links in the President style bracelets, and therefore it's difficult to get the correct sizing by adding or subtracting one full link from the 6 or the 12 o'clock side. Half links either side is beneficial. Citizen have made the correct decision. Let's look at the exhibition case back in detail. So, screw down exhibition case back, glazed with sapphire crystal, flawless mirror polishing to the stainless steel portion. Milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well. High definition engraving with the reference number, serial number of the piece and specification. Good to see sapphire crystal glazing in the front of the piece and also in the exhibition case back. Does a good job of displaying the movement, which is the Tsuyosa caliber 8322A automatic. Milled stripes on the main plate add interest, skeletonized rotor, and it's branded with Citizen Watch Co, which adds some interest, and we've got blued screws, which again adds some decoration to it rather than just being sterile. I like the large diameter. Sapphire crystal glazing does a good job of displaying the caliber, and it is nice to see the automatic movement with some decoration and blued screws. What I like about the exhibition case back is it is relatively low profile. It's not a deep bubble back case back that one often sees with pieces powered by the NH35A and NH38 respectively, although this isn't powered by a 9000 series caliber such as the 9015 and 9039, which are lower profile. This is 8000 series, it's powered by the 8322A, but it's not very deep. This is the benefit of it having 50 metres of hermetic seal. For example, if this exhibition case back provided 100 metres or 200 metres of hermetic seal as per a dive piece, the sapphire crystal would need to be thicker, the stainless steel portion would need to be thicker, so the case back would therefore need to be deeper. The negative of that is it would diminish the comfort level and feel good factor because the case back would be thicker, it would add 1.5 to 2 millimetres of thickness. This would not be 11.9 thick, which is the main benefit. This would be 13mm plus. So that's the benefit of a flat sapphire crystal and a very low profile flat sapphire crystal in the exhibition case back. I like the profiling of it, excellent. Mirror polishing is good, perfectly smooth. The engraving is high definition, but it doesn't feel sharp or rough, so this feels very comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. The integrated end links have quick release stainless steel spring bars, and I want to give due credit to Citizen again here, because what we're looking at is correct decision after correct decision. For example, they could have used standard stainless steel spring bars, and that would have made it more difficult to remove the integrated bracelet if you want to exchange it for an alternative bracelet or strap. By having quick release stainless steel spring bars, that makes it easy to remove the bracelet, and that negates the need for a spring bar tool. The underside of the integrated case is concentric CNC lathe tool machine to a high standard, nice large mirror polished bevels to the undercuts to the flanks as I've detailed, and we've got nice large bevels to the 4 tips of the integrated lug, so no sharp corners, no sharp edges to the case. Very comfortable, very well finished. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist, so just bear with me. I'm going to remove my Concord 40. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report this does come with a very long President style bracelet. I can easily slide 2 fingers beneath the bracelet and 2 button push butterfly clasp at all times. I have a large 8-inch wrist, so therefore this indicates this would fit up to a very large 9-inch plus wrist size with all the links in the bracelet. Even with all the links in this bracelet to fit a 9-inch plus wrist size, this is surprisingly lightweight. It lacks heft. I would expect this to be 150 plus grams. It's only 144 grams with all the links in the President style bracelet, so it is very low profile and also very lightweight. Now, subjectively, one can be critical of the taper. It does look very straight because it tapers from 22 down to 20. For a 40mm integrated head of the piece, 20 to 16, which I often refer to as perfection personified because it's the industry standard for good reason. It is the perfect taper for a 40mm head of the piece. I think a 20 to 16 taper would look more aesthetically pleasing. But however, subjectively one could argue, well, this integrated case is like a tonneau case. It's rather thick and therefore it does need some meat on the bracelet to balance the head of the piece. 20 to 16 might not balance it because it does have a butterfly clasp which is lighter than a micro adjustment clasp, for example, used on an oyster style or Jubilee style bracelet. So one has to be mindful of that. So, as I've detailed, what I like about this is, and Citizen deserve credit, and this is why I'm reminding you of it, half link on the 6 side, half link on the 12 side. If this did not have half links on the 6 and the 12 side, when you add or subtract one full link, this would cause the butterfly clasp to sit off centre, too far to the 6 or too far to the 12 side, and that's irritating. It's nice to have the 2 button push triggers bang on the centre of the wrist. The other benefit is, if for example you need to remove one full link, you can remove a half link plus a half link to make the one link, and the clasp will still be bang on the centre of the wrist. It's not going to be offset to the 6 or offset to the 6, offset to the 12 side respectively. So I like that they've used a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12. So many low tier brands make this fundamental error. They don't have half links on a butterfly clasp bracelet. And the same applies to mid-tier brands between €500 and €5,000. They only have one full link, regardless of whether they use an oyster-style bracelet, Jubilee-style bracelet, flat-link bracelet, or beads of rice bracelet, or indeed a President-style bracelet like this one. Half links are beneficial, so credit to Citizen for getting it right. Curvature is good. Often with butterfly clasps, they have a large rectangular slab of 316L grade stainless steel, and it's too straight and flat. Doesn't have enough curvature, particularly for smaller wrists of 6 to 7 inches. And you'll all be familiar with overhang on clasps, which are too long for smaller wrists. Even on my large 8-inch wrist, the curvature is correct. The President style bracelet, including the butterfly clasp, it sits low profile. This is not bulky, and it doesn't project too far from the wrist. It doesn't stick out, it doesn't stand up too far, too high like this. It's nice and curved. The curvature is good. Curvature is good for a 6 to 7 inch wrist. Curvature is equally good for a 7 to 8. They've got it correct. When it moves up and down the wrist, it doesn't feel sharp, doesn't feel rough, doesn't scratch the wrist. It's deburred and chamfered very well. Comfortable, looks good, articulates freely. It's a fluid bracelet and clasp. So, wrist presence is good. The guilloche dial is mesmerising. I love the blue tone of it. It's got a nice metallic sheen to it. Textured finish adds interest, and the contrasting silver grey anthracite subdial with the contrasting blue subdial second hand also complements the guilloche blue dial. Execution is fantastic. Mirror polishing to the indices, mirror polishing to the baton hands contrasts very well with the guilloche dial. Quality of the printing to the Citizen automatic text on the dial is fantastic. It's sharp and high definition. Legibility is stellar. Clarity of the AR coating is some of the best I've seen in the low tier. The sapphire crystal looks invisible when you look at it straight on. No glare, no reflection whatsoever, and it sits close to the dial. As I've detailed, the benefit is the rehort is relatively low profile. It's not a deep rehort as per the NH35A or NH38 powered pieces. This is the benefit of the 8322A. Yes, it's not as low profile as the 9015 and the 9039, but however, the rehort isn't too deep. The dial is close to the sapphire crystal. The sapphire crystal is close to the cannon pinion, the handset and the subdial. So legibility is enhanced. Fantastic looking piece from every angle. And I like that the case spec is low profile because you can see the benefits. Low profile flanks, they're not thick and slab sided. Looks good from every angle. This blue guilloche dial is the best looking option. It's available in a plethora of colour options, but this blue guilloche dial version, the reference NK5010-51L, is the best version of the Tsuyosa small seconds. Just fantastic. I like the mirror polishing to the centre links in the President style bracelet. They contrast with the brushed satin finish outer links. I would just prefer a 20-16 taper. 20-16 is one industry standard taper. The other alternative is 22-18. 22-20 is not as popular because it makes the bracelet more straight and parallel, but subjectively some collectors might like that. The bracelet looking straight and parallel versus having an aggressive taper from 22-18, alternatively 20-16. I think 20-16 looks better on a 40, but it really is subjective. It comes down to your personal taste. So looks good. Beautiful lustre to the outer links, which complements the lustre to the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the top of the case. Mirror polishing to the centre links complements the mirror polish bezel and the mirror polish flanks. They've got the balance correct in terms of finishing between mirror polishing and brushed satin finishing. It's not too shiny and reflective like a dress piece, and it's not brushed satin finished too much to look like a tool watch. And I think they've got it right because the mirror polish centre links complement the bezel, complement the flanks, but the brushed satin finishing to the top of the lugs complements the brushed satin finishing to the outer links. So it's a nice mixture, and I think it looks very well proportioned. Now, lug to lug, it's compact. That's something to note. 44.7. Now, you'll know from my previous reviews, 48mm is the sweet spot. That is the perfect lug to lug measurement for all wrist sizes, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. 48 is the perfect sweet spot. At 44.7, it's well below the 48. However, I'm not going to be critical of it. Well, why is that? Well, this does have an angular brutalist profile to the lugs, rather like a tonneau case. This does need a compact lug to lug as a result because, particularly for smaller wrists of 6 to 7, if this were 48, it would be too long for 6 to 7 with this angular profile. With the 44.7, it does look like a compact case and it does fit very well. There's nice angular profiling to it. So we don't have a very large gap beneath the tip of the angular lugs, and we don't have a very large gap beneath the end link in the President style bracelet. It pulls snug to the wrist. Low profile, so this will easily slip underneath the shirt cuff. Now you'll know from my previous reviews, 13mm and below is the sweet spot for a piece to easily slip underneath the shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. Needless to say, at 11.9, this is 1.1mm well below the 13 sweet spot. This is easily going to slip underneath a shirt cuff. So it's a practical daily wear piece which could potentially be worn as a dress piece, and I really like that it's low profile because often integrated bracelet pieces like this are very thick. They are 13mm plus because they're powered by the NH35A or the NH38 respectively, and of course that's a deep caliber, and they have a bubble back case back and of course 13 plus. They're like a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel as a result. This is fantastic. Low profile at 11.9, compact lug to lug of 44.7. So this will fit you if you have a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist. This will also give enough satisfying wrist presence if you have a larger 7 to 8 inch plus wrist size. Wrist presence is good, feels balanced, and surprisingly lightweight at 144 grams with a very long bracelet. Needless to say, if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 8 links from the bracelet. If you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 6 links. Even I would remove 4 links from the bracelet for my large 8 inch wrist. Now, to clarify, there are enough removable links on the 6 o'clock side and the 12 o'clock side of the President style bracelet to size this down to a minimum 6 inch wrist size. So 6 inches is the minimum with all the links removed, and 9 inches is the maximum, as you can see. Very long bracelet, but surprisingly lightweight, 144. Doesn't feel top heavy, feels very well balanced, feel good factor is excellent, comfort level is excellent. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So just bear with me. I'm going to put my Concord 40 back on the wrist and then we'll continue. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. So this uses C3 Superluminova on the applied indices and the baton handset. Now in the daylight, the C3 on the indices and the baton hands perfectly matches. They are white, they're not cream, which is good. It's a good colour tone match. In the dark, you can see potency of the exciter is good. So we're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the applied indices, 5 to 6 layers on the baton hands. Green tone perfectly matches on the indices and also the baton hands. And one can immediately differentiate between the shorter baton hour hand and the longer baton minutes hand. Now, the camera is struggling to autofocus, but what I like about it is the double applied indices at 12 balance the double applied indices at 6 below the 6 o'clock second subdial. So symmetry is good. That's the benefit of it having a symmetrical dial versus an asymmetrical dial. So potency of the exciter is good. C3 is an aesthetically pleasing green tone versus BGW9, which is blue. The application is good. I like it, has potency, and I like the green tone of it. It balances very well because the contrast is good. The indices and the baton hands have the same green tone. So excellent quality, and just bear with me, I'm going to shine the torch on it and you can see. Nice even application, and what I like is the proportions of the indices and the proportions of the baton hands match. They don't look too large. For example, the indices don't look undersized, the baton hands don't look undersized. They're balanced. The applied indices and the baton hands width is good. Legibility is good, and this is what I like about having a subdial at 6 and not having a date complication at 3 o'clock, for example, which would make it asymmetrical. Excellent performance and satisfactory. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So as I've detailed, this is powered by the Miyota caliber 8322A, which is an 8000 series automatic. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse caliber made in Japan. Has 21 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. The main plate is decorated with milled stripes, rather like Côtes de Genève or Geneva stripes, and we also have decorated blue screws. Skeletonized rotor, which is branded with Citizen Watch Co. They deserve credit because they could have just left the rotor sterile, just branded with Miyota, and the caliber, which is 8322A, but they've signed it with Citizen Watch Co, which has some interest. And although the decoration is just on the main plate rather than the bridges, the milled stripes add interest, and also the skeletonized rotor adds interest. So has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications and works well, as I've demonstrated. The main benefit, the main thing I like about it is the 60-hour power reserve. So to clarify or remind you, the 8215 has a 40-hour power reserve, which is standard for an 8000 series Miyota caliber. The benefits of this 8322A, which is the second subdial version of the 8315, they both have the highest Miyota caliber power reserves of all the calibers they make. 60 hours is the maximum for Miyota. So 8322A has the same architecture as the 8315. The difference is the 8315 has a date complication. This doesn't. Miyota delete it. The other difference is the 8322A you're looking at has a subdial for the seconds at 6 o'clock versus a second hand mounted on the cannon pinion as per the 8315. But other than that, the architecture is similar. They both have 60 hours. So they're a level above the 8215. They have hacking, which is beneficial. And what I like about it is, due to the absence of the date complication and the absence of a second hand fitted to the cannon pinion, this is a low profile thin caliber. So therefore, the benefit is this piece can be slimmed down to only 11.9 millimeters, which is low profile, but it still has a very high 60-hour power reserve. Stated accuracy of the caliber 8322A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Citizen are doing a good job of regulating the Miyota caliber 8322As they're using. This one is running consistently at +8 seconds per day. So +8 is well within the stated -20 to +40 wide accuracy range. And although it's not chronometer accurate of -4 to +6, +8 is acceptable. I like that it's 60 hours. That's the main benefit. So to remind you, the negative subjectively is it takes more manual winding. So for example, as I've detailed, if this were powered by an 8215, which is another 8000 series, that's 40 hours of power reserve, and it usually takes the industry standard 40 clockwise turns to fully manually wind the mainspring. This has a much higher power reserve, 20 more hours. It's 60 hours versus the standard 40. So this needs more manual winding. 50 clockwise turns versus 40 is enough. It doesn't need 60, which is good. 40 hours normally needs 40 clockwise turns. 60-hour power reserve obviously needs more manual winding. 50 clockwise turns will suffice. So Yes, one could say it's laborious. You have to turn it clockwise 50 turns. You have to turn it an additional 10 times. That's the point. But 60 hours is very strong specification. And as I've detailed, the 8315 and this 8322A are the highest power reserve Miyota calibers in their entire series. And an additional 20 hours is perfectly beneficial. It's particularly beneficial if you wear the piece in rotation as part of a collection, because, for example, if you don't wear this piece for 2 to 3 days, you don't need to put it on an automatic watch winder, and you don't need to manually wind it every 2 to 3 days. 60 hours is very strong power reserve, and you can also top it up with 50 clockwise turns. It's excellent. I really like the 60 hours. That's the main benefit, and of course the other benefit is its low profile. This piece is only 11.9 due to the thin caliber. No negatives to it whatsoever. It's reliable. The build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are excellent. Yes, it's not as well finished, and the build quality and materials and finishing aren't as stellar as the 9000 series, such as the 9015 and 9039, but of course they do not have 60 hours, they have 42 hours respectively. So this has high power reserve, and one has to appreciate that. It's not as well finished as the 9000 series, but it has a higher power reserve, an additional 18 hours. So that's beneficial. So last, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So €499, we are at the upper end of the €0 to €500 low tier price point, on the cusp of mid tier between €500 and €5,000. I'm going to declare it good quality, and I'm going to declare the value as okay. I think there's room for refinement with regards to the bracelet. It could be tightened up, and at this price point, to make it excellent quality and excellent value, I'd like to see the addition or the upgrade to 1.2mm or 1.6mm screw pins. Push pins are a cost-cutting measure, but however, one has to be realistic and magnanimous. One has to expect some production cost-cutting measure in order to make this viable to retail at €499. But screw pins would tighten it up and make it tighter. That would be the benefit. So good quality, okay value at €499. 60 hours of power reserve is something I really like about it, and it does look like a very aesthetically pleasing piece with the guilloche dial and sub-dial second hands. This blue dial version of the guilloche dial is fantastic. It's very aesthetically pleasing. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Citizen Tsuyosa small seconds, reference NK5010-51L. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.